The fateful day began as many had before, but proved a nerve-shattering one for Duncan MacDonald and William Simpson. The two fishermen were heading home across the loch in their motor cruiser. It was a hot summer afternoon, and they had enjoyed a pleasant day of fishing. As they chugged along the loch, they reckoned it was time for a well-earned cup of tea. Simpson went down into the cabin to put the kettle on, while MacDonald continued steering the cruiser. MacDonald himself described what happened next. I heard a splashing or disturbance in the water astern of us. I looked up, and about 20 yards behind us, this creature was coming directly after us in our wake. It only took a matter of seconds to catch up on us. It grazed the side of the boat. I'm quite certain this was unintentional. When it struck the boat, it seemed to come to a halt or at least slow down. I grabbed the oar and was attempting to fend it off, my one fear being that if it got under the boat, it might capsize it. Simpson felt the impact and saw the tea kettle slide and fall, spilling water over the burner and drowning the flames. He turned off the gas and bounced onto the deck, where he saw MacDonald frantically shoving at the creature with his oar. The two men struggled to keep the huge monster from overturning the boat, which it now appeared had become its goal. It was enormous, an ugly-looking thing and utterly strange, being 25 to 30 feet long and having a large, snake-like head about a foot wide, a back with 3 humps raised about 18 inches above the surface of the water, and rough-textured, dirty brown skin. The oar snapped in the struggle, so one of the men grabbed a rifle, swiftly loaded it, and fired once. The creature slowly sank into the depths of the loch. Simpson and MacDonald went home with all possible speed, horrified by the violent attack and wholly sickened by the beast's appearance. The last word on this dark encounter goes to MacDonald. I don't ever want to see it again. I was terrified. In the summer of 1966, Captain Ridgway and Sergeant Blythe were on leave from the British Army and decided to challenge their physical and mental limits by spending 92 days rowing 3,500 miles across the Atlantic, from Cape Cod to Ireland, in a self-imposed survival test. Both men were at peak physical fitness and, courtesy of the Army, possessed of the discipline required for such a challenge. With full confidence in their physical strength and mental preparedness, the sailors kitted out their 20-foot open boat with provisions and all safety equipment which might be required for the journey. They set out on the 4th of June, assured they were ready for any challenge. They weren't. On the 25th of July, roughly halfway through their voyage, the men had already, though barely, survived Hurricane Alma, as well as fierce Atlantic storms, massive waves, whales bigger than their boat, not to mention fatigue and hunger, their food being rationed due to water damage during the hurricane. But as dawn broke on this day, they were faced with a challenge no amount of forethought could prepare them for. It was Blythe's turn to sleep, and Ridgway, lost in his thoughts, drowsily pulled at the oars when the stillness of first light was broken with a jolt. Ridgway himself described what happened next. I was shocked to full wakefulness by a swishing noise to starboard. I looked out into the water and suddenly saw the writhing, twisting shape of a great creature. It was outlined by the phosphorescence in the sea, as if a string of neon lights were hanging from it. It was an enormous size, some 35 or more feet long, and it came towards me quite fast. I must have watched it for some 10 seconds. It headed straight at me and disappeared right beneath me. Paralysed in shock and fear at what his eyes had seen, Ridgway stopped rowing, expecting their much smaller boat to be capsized at any moment. But there was nothing. Silence. He steeled himself to move, glancing in the waters surrounding the boat, but saw nothing. Was it lurking in the water beneath, sizing him up, preparing to lunge, barge, or bite? He waited for what felt an eternity, his eyes desperately trying to penetrate the dark water surrounding him, when suddenly it came. A most tremendous splash and surge of water rocked the boat. The monster surfaced, then crashed back into the sea. Ridgway was left shaking, reeling at what he had just seen, not knowing what it was, but at 35 feet long, dark and serpentine in appearance, he was certain what it was not. I am not an imaginative man. I searched for a rational explanation. Blythe and I had seen whales and sharks, dolphins and porpoises, flying fish, all sorts of sea creatures, but this monster in the night was none of these. I reluctantly had to believe that there was only one thing it could have been, a sea serpent. I can only tell what I saw with my own eyes, and I am no longer a disbeliever. Though the men kept a keen eye out for it, particularly at daybreak, the sea serpent of the Atlantic did not appear before these sailors again.